Hello, everyone. I'm Barbora Bukovská. I'm a Senior Director for Law and Policy at Article 19, which is a global freedom of expression organization. I have no idea why it's written over there that I'm from the United States. I'm not. So I think maybe it was written by ChatGPT. But I assure you, I'm not. I'm based in international office in London, and I'm originally from Czech Republic. And I will be moderating this panel, which is a launch of the joint declaration of four special rapporteurs on freedom of expression that are jointly issuing this joint declaration on artificial intelligence, freedom of expression, and media freedom. But before I introduce what joint declaration is, and before I introduce our speakers, I have to say that I don't know how I ended up moderating this panel because I am the biggest AI skeptic. I think that AI is the most successful rebrand in history because these tools, which have been developed as surveillance tools and the tools which are giving us seamlessly advertisement, well-timed advertisement based on predictive behavior and vast collection of the data, are now allegedly supposed to make our work more effective and are supposed to kind of help us to communicate and work better. But on the other hand, then I know there is also a reality because it is these algorithms and these surveillance tools that are now deciding what millions of people see, what they engage with, and what they might actually in the future think. And both out of malice as well as metrics. And I also know that these tools prioritize engagement over accuracy. They prioritize speed over scrutiny and virality over verification. And it is also the companies that are behind this technology that are making us the promises how these tools will be advancing humanity and advancing our work that are totally motivated by profit and clicks rather than anything else. I also think that we as an industry, as a community, we need to, when we want to hold them and the states who are using these tools accountable, we also scrutinize ourselves how we engage with this technology and how we use it in our work. Because previously, I just came back from this panel, which was called Cautiously Optimistic and was presenting some project done together with Google about sentiment analysis in the newsroom, and I can say that I'm in a major shock. But we can talk about it in a second. But we are not here to talk about my fear of this technology or my skepticism. We are here to discuss what is the position of four freedom of expression mandates on this very topic. For those of you who are not familiar with laws and international mechanisms, we have four very important mandate holders, freedom of expression mandate holders, who are huge supporters and huge friends of our industry. And those are Irene Khan, who is the UN Special Rapporteur on freedom of expression. Unfortunately, she can't be with us today for some personal reasons, and unfortunately, she had to drop last minute. She was originally on the agenda, but she can't be here, so we send her lots of greetings. And then we also have Geereesha Topsy Sonoo, who is a Special Rapporteur on freedom of expression and access of information in Africa, who is joining us online. I hope she won't be silenced by technology and she will be able to join us. We also have hi Geereesha. And on my right hand, I have Ambassador Braathu, who is OSCE representative on media freedom, and Pedro Vaca, who is a Special Rapporteur on freedom of expression of the Inter-American Commission. So they are the mandate holders who work with the respective regional and international bodies to advance freedom of expression and media freedom on standards, but also in support to the journalists and those who are targeted for exercising of freedom of expression. Joint Declaration is a very special project of theirs because since 1999, they have been coming together once a year, issuing a joint statement, a joint position on the most pressing issue which affects their work. And they have been issuing this joint declaration that have been used by our community in advocacy, in pushing for better laws, and also for promoting the most progressive standard on this particular topic. It's also very special that we are here at the IPI because the last time they launched the joint declaration at the IPI Congress was in, I think, 2012 at Trinidad, when they launched a joint declaration on crimes against freedom of expression. And that was actually, and still is, importantly, a hugely important document that I use, every single time I speak about impunity and protection of journalists. So hopefully this one will be of similar nature and will be used by all of you here in advocacy on this topic. But I don't want to dominate this conversation, and I already have for quite some time, so I want to now move to discuss actually what is in this joint declaration. And I already alluded to, well, I didn't allude to, it's obvious from the title, that this joint declaration deals with the issue of artificial intelligence and media freedom. So I want to start with Ambassador Braathu and ask him why did you choose this particular joint declaration at this time, and how it is different from the previous documents which deal with freedom of expression and digital technologies?
Well, thank you. And very shortly, I could say that we have separately, the mandate holders have been separately working on the issues of social media platforms and AI and the implications of the technology on freedom of expression and the dangers that it poses, but also some of the possibilities it offers. We discovered that we were all very concerned by the technological development and the implications for freedom of expression. So earlier this year, this spring, we decided on this as the topic for this year. And actually, I think it's good that we did it now. I think actually we're a bit late, quite frankly. We've been concerned about this, the intersection between technology and freedom of expression for several years. But we now see this evolving in leaps and bounds. And with generative AI tools, it's just being turbocharged. And we felt that it was important to now think aloud, offer some suggestions and policy guidance. And I'm sure that this is just the beginning of a conversation that we will have to continue in the time ahead. It's high time we discuss the freedom of expression implications of these technologies. And okay, you said at the beginning you think that AI is overhyped. That may be, but we see AI doing things that search engines never did before. We have everything from, well, just to mention AI hallucinating, making fake news, fake information. So there are a lot of things that we have to be concerned about. But not to speak much more, but we also see that AI is concentrated in the hands of a very few, very powerful corporations, and that raises serious concerns about freedom of expression, availability of information, etc.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. And before we move to the discussion about more nitty-gritty or more specific issues they are addressing joint declaration, and by the way, the joint declaration will be available online after this launch. So it's not that you miss something. We are launching it now, and it will be available. So you will be able to read it and read what it says. But going to what Ambassador, what you just said about different types of AI, because it's not one blob, but different tools which are covered by this terminology. But one of them is generative AI, right? And then that has, as you rightly said, might have a transformative effect on freedom of expression for many reasons. But in the joint declaration, you also talk about dual use, a dual potential, that it can be also improved certain things, or it might have also positive impact. So would you elaborate on what kind of issues you are addressing in the joint declaration as potentially positive and then also potentially negative?
Well, in terms of analyzing and compiling vast amounts of information, certainly there are some positive things. And we see that in many newsrooms, they are already using AI for some mundane tasks, you can say. Some newsrooms are also using AI for more analytical approaches, which might be a good thing. So I think we're not going to throw, as I would say, the baby out with the bathwater. We're going to say that some things can be beneficial, but we have to be aware of the downside of AI so that we can use AI in the best possible way. And you also made a very important point. There are different AI or artificial intelligence tools. And what's also very interesting is that if you ask the same question to several AI tools, you get sometimes different answers. Of course, AI is no better than the information it's fed with. And that's another thing, that information that has been produced, for example, by legacy media at great cost is being harvested by AI technologies to feed into their systems without paying, very often without consent, and without paying any fee for the use of this information. But does AI really develop new information? No, it needs to be fed new information. So that's also an issue that we have to be aware of. Yuval Hariri has said on several occasions, he's the author of the book Nexus, has said that he doesn't understand why people trust AI when they don't trust human beings. And I think that's something we should reflect on, because AI is created by human beings. The algorithms that run it are also human created, and they're gauged in certain ways in order to benefit the companies that run them. So this is also a business. This is a money-making endeavor. It's not a socially altruistic project. We have to be aware of that.
Yeah, exactly. So those are very good points. But there is another aspect of freedom of expression, which is access to information. And Ambassador already alluded to it, that you can ask these tools and they get you a very different information based on personalization and also based on this obscure systems they use to profile the information to you. So I wanted to ask you, Pedro, what do you say in the joint declaration about these aspects? What is the kind of impact of AI, and what are the concerns you raise in the joint declaration about the impact on access to information, and especially in the age of disinformation, or those concerns which Ambassador Braathu already mentioned on, let's say, group as a risk of discrimination, or marginalized groups, especially in the global south. So what's the take in the document on this?
Thank you, Barbora. And I would like to thank IPI for hosting this, I would say, tradition, and also to you, Jan, Geereesha, and Irene for the hard work that our offices have done during these months working on this joint declaration. I think that one of the things that could be so interesting to share with you is that we all do have multilateral roots. So that implies that when we produce documents, we also are taking into account our mandates, the treaties that were signed by the member states, and also we are listening to the conversation. So I will not only invite you to consult this joint declaration, but also to look at the history. Because when you ask me about marginalized groups, I cannot, remove from the reflection a 2 years ago declaration on gender justice and free expression. And to go to the bottom of what I think we share in this joint declaration on artificial intelligence and free expression, we do consider that there's a chance, I'm also a skeptic, but there's a chance that underrepresented voices could take some kind of profit through the use of AI. Now, so marginalized voices can be heard through these tools, I think the answer could be it's possible. No? Let's see how it goes. But then also at the bottom of this joint declaration, we do have like the right to discern. And in the right to discern, we need to be aware of over removal through artificial intelligence when the conversation could be impacted by the use of artificial intelligence in content moderation. We have to be aware of this, I would say, sad world where our differences have become a key issue of the public debate, not in the path of what we called in a previous joint declaration intercultural tolerance, something that we said before, but in the path of radicalization. So do we think that AI could be a tool that deepens the roots of radicalization? The answer is yes. And also, we have to be aware of the data collection and the behavior of the users, but also the media, also the industry, and where that data collection goes, and what is happening with that. So we also provided a chapter, a few paragraphs that targets that issue about surveillance, AI, and the impact on free expression.
Yeah. Following on this, I now want to bring in Geereesha. I hope you can hear us. We can see you, but also like to follow up on what Pedro said. An issue with marginalized groups or undeveloped some region is that there is also the issue of digital divide. And then with the digital divide, it also preventing certain groups to benefit from some technology, and then also to be kind of like the users of this technology without the ability to shape their governance and their use. So I want to ask you, Geereesha, on what does the joint declaration say about this, about like AI governance, marginalized groups, and the countries with huge digital divide. How to make it more, inclusive and also intersectional, following of what Pedro just said.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, IPI, for hosting us this year, and hi to Pedro and Ambassador. And I'm sorry Irene couldn't join us. So yes, there is a big digital divide happening with AI, especially for Africa. Africa is not seeing any AI being developed in Africa itself, and AI is very slow for African languages, African tones, and African skin tones as well. So we are seeing that with the fast development of AI, it is creating a very big divide between the North and the South. So and also AI is taking data from media, all media around the world, especially Africa, without giving anything back, in the sense that it is taking whatever data it can collect from media people, and it's not giving back any compensation, or it's not even telling them what data it's collecting.
Yes, thank you so much. But also, I think the digital divide is not just kind of like with internet penetration, but also on huge dependencies on the foreign companies, like, especially for Africa, like Chinese companies and the US companies that are indeed not giving anything back. But would you mind to tell us more about like how does the joint declaration kind of raises this as a concern, and also what is it proposing to do with this?
Well, it raises it as a big concern, and it is stating that these impacts should be taken into consideration, and the companies developing AI should in fact be mindful of the digital divide, so be more inclusive in their approach, and also see whether they can whatever data they are collecting as well, whether there can be some form of compensation or as some agreement with media practitioners so that They do not just uplift data and go away and develop it. There has to be some consensual agreement between AI developers and media practitioners. And so the joint declaration, in fact, says all that. And we also state that there has to be some regulations, and AI companies have to develop a human rights approach in relation to all this development of AI.
Thank you. So now I want to look more into some specific aspects of this joint declaration. And like obviously, like we spoke mostly now when we spoke about AI, we alluded for most of the time to generative AI. And one of the aspects of the joint declaration actually deals with some sort of overlooked aspect of freedom of expression, which is the freedom of opinion and potential for manipulation of freedom of opinion through these tools. So, and there's also very much a concern when states start using these tools for manipulation of societies, and that's also very important for our region and also actually for the OSCE, where one of these manipulation and propaganda was one of the reasons why the organization was originally established. So I wanted to ask Ambassador Braathu to reflect more on this issue. What does the joint declaration say? What are your concerns about the freedom of opinion of these tools, and then what the recommendations are, how to address this?
Well, it's actually, the previous speaker also mentioned this, it's a human rights-centric approach to everything related to AI. So opinion should not be disqualified. The opinions of large parts of the world's population, especially in the global south, have to be taken into account. Yes, they should get something back, but there needs to be an inclusive approach and a human rights-centric approach to how the AI algorithms are structured and how they operate. And we're not sure that that is the case today. Maybe that's a diplomatic statement. We need to have this discussion between authorities, governments, and private companies in order to have AI tools that actually are inclusive and not divisive, that allow opinion from all over the world to be brought into the AI systems. And we also, in that context, also need to have AI systems that can operate in smaller language, with smaller languages that where there aren't hundreds of millions of people involved. So that has to be part of the approach. The way it is now, there is a lack of transparency. We simply do not know on which basis the AI technologies and their algorithms are based. What we think we see, and I'm pretty sure about this, is that they are based on sensationalist approaches. They want to harvest information. They repackage information without giving the source of the information, without giving any links to where you can go and check up on information. So it raises all kinds of questions about the integrity of the information. And as I mentioned in my initial words, there is also this phenomenon of AI hallucinating, making up things. So some things can be true, some things can be based on verifiable and documented evidence, and then it takes it, generative AI especially, can take it a step further, or several steps further, and actually make up things that really don't exist. So that's why we have to be very cautious. We have to be skeptical about what AI gives us, especially because they don't give any source. It presents us with something that is the truth in capital letters, but we don't know what's behind that. And that is one of the problems with generative AI in particular. But it's about how the information that goes into AI is harvested. There's no compensation for the information, as I mentioned previously. The algorithms manipulate the information to give certain results. And as I mentioned, if you ask certain questions, some political questions of different AI models, you get different responses. Now, obviously, that's because the creators of the algorithms on those AI systems have certain political opinions. So that disqualifies opinions. So we were talking about a human rights-based, inclusive approach, and we need to have a conversation about this, and we need, I think, regulation.
Yeah. I certainly agree with you about this, although I would challenge some of the use of this terminology when we say, like, hallucination. I think we should call it for what it is. It's error. It's not, hallucination. These tools do not have, capacities of any of these sorts. It's basically the error in the algorithm. But I want to follow up more on what you just said and go to Pedro on this, because what Ambassador said was really that, the way how this generative AI kind of moderates the content is very different from what we have seen, for example, on social media, right? Like on the social media when it, does the algorithm in a certain way. What the generative AI does is that it collects this data, it then moderates something, but also has this personalization aspect and this overall, tendency to want to please the user, right? To give you more and more content, which you kind of are gonna be what you want instead of kind of challenging you, which in my view has an impact on freedom of creating of the opinion. So I wanted to ask you in this, joint declaration where you are making recommendation when it comes to freedom of opinion and, partially also to what I asked before on the right to information, because you create an opinion based on information. What sort of recommendations do you have in this area?
I think there's a key word that probably we're missing, and we should say it loud with capital letters: freedom. And why I'm putting emphasis on this, because any kind of interference in your freedom to believe and to discern about your surrounding, it's something that we should be worried about. And if the question is if AI of generative AI could interfere in your freedom to discern, I think the answer is yes, there's a high potential for that to happen. But then let's think about other scenarios that we cover in the joint declaration. No? We think the political participation in democratic countries as some kind of horizontal stage. What happens, for example, with deepfakes against a female candidate? That unbalance the political participation stage, and it's the tool used to undermine the possibilities of being elected or even to be in charge of what the people think about my participation. So those two examples, I think, clearly shows how stressful could be this for freedom of expression. But then, in the other side, I think there's a tension that, we need to be aware between individual realization and, let's say, collective and societal challenges. When everything we use, everything we read, everything we buy, everything we ask and the answers we receive is shaped for the individual to be engaged, there's a huge potential of the collective thinking and understanding for being missing out. No? So in that field, I think that, it could be interesting, the sentiments of, tools that read sentiments and develop and deliver individual content. But more than that, I think we need journalism that covers the AI development as a power. Because if we think that journalism and media outlets do have that duty of helping us, as a society, to understand how powers are moving forward, we've been 2 years, 3 years talking about AI. That is a power, and it's a power that has to be accountable. And then going back to the joint declaration, that's why you'll see some references to business and human rights. That discussion that the UN hosted several years ago says a lot about due process, no? Due diligence, hiring procedures. We expect tech companies that develop AI to train their people in the proper way, to be plural, because we think those steps and those measures prevent some risks to free expression to happen.
Yeah. And I want to also look more at the recommendations which the joint declaration has, obviously, for the stakeholders in when it comes to the AI, but joint declaration always put recommendation primarily to the states. So I want to ask you, Geereesha, whether you can tell us more about what are the key recommendations you would give to the states when it comes, who should guarantee media freedom and who should protect freedom of expression, create enabling environment for the media freedom as well. So what are the key recommendations you put in this area to the states? And then I will ask Ambassador and Pedro, what are the specific recommendations to the companies?
So what recommendations we have for the state in the joint declaration is for the states to, because it's the state's primary duty and responsibility to have an environment which fosters freedom of expression and access to information. So we are telling the states to use AI responsibly and transparently. We also tell the states that they have to promote equitable access and opportunities of AI to everyone. That includes that they have to have digital education program and ensures that everyone, even minorities, women, and other groups that are minorities have access to information and the benefits of AI, because we say that there are benefits to AI. And also, when responding to risks and challenges, make sure that any restrictions on the right to receive information is proportional. And also that there has to be some content moderation in respect of AI, and also make sure that there is no digital surveillance technologies against human rights defenders, journalists, and civil society as a whole. And also there has to be a due diligence as a necessary precondition to having public-private partnership and similar forms of cooperation with companies that as regards AI. And also we have to have in place safeguards against bias, discrimination, and gender-based violence. And any public investment in the design, development, and deployment of AI systems is founded on human rights. That's what we said, that the human rights-centered approach has to be present at every stage. And also the states have to be aware of the cross-border nature of AI, because AI is not just in one country, it cuts across all borders. So these are the main recommendations for the states. But in that joint declaration, we just don't have recommendations for states. We have the recommendations for many stakeholders in the whole AI industry.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll go into that in a minute. And I will also open very quickly the discussion, the floor for question. But I was just passed this paper which says that the joint declaration is now online and is available on Blue Sky of the OSCE Media Freedom account, which is OSCE and dash or whatever, RFOM, where you can see it, so on Blue Sky. And thanks for putting it on Blue Sky and not on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. I don't want to be on a fascist platform, but you can find it on the nice open source platform. But now going back to the joint declaration, which you can quickly skim and then ask questions on this issue of other stakeholders and companies, because the role of private sector is a big aspect of this joint declaration. And so I want to start to ask you for, enlighten us what are the key recommendations to the private sector. Ambassador, you already mentioned that one of the key problems is the big concentration in the hands of very few platforms. And, for media sectors, has always been a problem if it's concentrated in few hands. So what are the recommendations in this area which you put forward?
Well, we want governments to regulate We want governments to regulate as governments regulate other sectors of the economy to avoid monopolistic or oligopolistic concentrations of power. And what we're saying is that big tech, just to use that term, holds an enormous power over vital, societally important sectors in our current world. And that this concentration of power is potentially dangerous for freedom of expression and for media freedom in general. So we're asking governments to be aware of these issues and to actually ensure that there is a level playing field and where a pluralism of voices can be heard to avoid this concentration. Now, what we expect from the companies, we expect the companies to be socially responsible. We expect the companies to have a human rights-centered approach to their algorithms. We expect the companies to provide transparency on what the algorithms, how the algorithms are constructed and how they operate. Because we see the danger of concentration, we want to encourage pluralism. It's important that we have engagement with companies in this regard. But again, come back to something I said initially, namely that big tech is big business. These companies are not providing a social service. They are a business. And we have to understand that. And that's why government have a very important role in ensuring that there is transparency and pluralism in this information system. The companies will probably not do that on their own. They will have to be encouraged to do it. But again, I come back to what I said about a socially responsible behavior on the part of the companies.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to ask the same question of Pedro. But I think that again, when we talk about AI and media journalism, it's like the focus is too much on generative AI, but we shouldn't forget that there are kind of other AI, especially through surveillance, and there is often this kind of fear that AI will kill journalism, but AI is already killing journalists. Literally, when they are used to, locate journalists, surveil journalists, even in the conflict zone. So what is your recommendation to the companies about this? When they are also selling this technology to the countries, then when they use it to kill journalists or to go after journalists and the media?
Before I answer that, I think we have to admit that for a while, and when I say a while, it's years, this discussion between technology, human rights, and democracy, that triangle, seems like a loop. And if you look at the recommendations we are providing, and you've been tracking the conversation, you'll see that some of them are similar, for example, to the ones we've previously delivered on content moderation. So that's why I want to share a bit and comment a bit.
Okay.
Being the comments only my responsibility. But, meaningful transparency. We need more information on how it works, what is happening, how do you fix problems. I think transparency in this kind of conversation is not a new topic, but the way we try to, the approach we tried, it's also a critique to the past in a way that when we were saying access to information and transparency in the past, I think we were not heard in the previous stages of this conversation. So that's why meaningful transparency, it's important. Then also to adopt policies, but policies that engage with the conversation. Because when we look, for example, at the terms of reference of social media, it's not specifically AI, but it seems that those terms of reference is like the contract between one user and one platform. But we have a more sophisticated conversation, and we need policies that go in multiple ways with our discussions. If they want us to be paying attention to the sentiments, we should be also asking them to adapt the policies they provide to the status of the conversation. And I think that's a demand, if I may. Then we say in this panel, we have concerns. So we need answers to those concerns. And probably the source of the answers is the same people that is selling these kind of tools. So I think there's a minimum expectation of having proper answers to the questions and the concern we are sharing. A whole chapter on our invitation to refrain from exporting and the potential damage through surveillance, because that could be something that deeply erodes the trust, and also that could be damaging our social, interaction between societies. And then also, I think one of the most interesting recommendations we're providing is there's a cycle of AI now. So design, development, training, deploying, overseeing the AI. And there's a lot of money. So we also are asking investors on AI, ask yourselves, how is the human rights priority of that development you are investing in? And ask yourself if you want to be part of a shadow AI tool, or if you would prefer for your own investment to have more information about the potential risk on human rights and free expression.
Okay, thank you. So now I want, because now we have 15 minutes to the end, I obviously have more questions, but I want to see if there are any questions from the audience to the special rapporteurs. Yes, many hands. So I don't know whether there is like a mic. So yes. So I will take maybe like 3 questions and then we'll do another round.
Hello.
If you can say who you are and ask a question rather than making a statement.
I'm Katharina Zügel, Policy Director at the Forum on Information and Democracy. So first of all, congratulations for that statement. I was wondering to which extent the declaration looks into more future problems, particularly to the potential, very likely arrival of advertising that might be extremely personalized, potentially not recognizable as advertisement, and what impact that can have on the right to information and freedom of expression.
Thank you. Then there was hand here.
Thank you very much. Let me congratulate the panelists again for the work done. I just want to make a little intervention concerning marginalized voices. Shouldn't we look at AI as both asset and liability, not just liability, concerning marginalized voices? Because right now we know that through the use of AI, some people who couldn't write well, particularly women, can use generative AI to develop contents that speak to issues around them and share. Then in terms of AI not bringing out the sources of data, I think that a major issue is knowledge about how to use AI tools. Because if you request AI to say, using sources, document and give references, both in text and end of chapter citation, AI usually will do that. So I think that it's more of training people on how to maximize AI. We should look in that direction. So in terms of declaration, I would think that declaration should not just be to investors, governments, it should also be to end users, community people, on what they should do differently in order to maximize AI to ensure more inclusivity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then that question, and then, we'll answer. Oh, yes, then I will give them a chance to answer, and then we'll take another round.
Thank you very much. Yesterday, Mr. Stiglitz, in his opening interview, I should say, mentioned the close relationship between AI tech bros and the Trump administration. And he also underlined the fact that all Europe's data now is in the United States. So with the leverage that the US government possesses, under the current geopolitical situation, how realistic do you think is it to regulate the big tech, and what kind of leverages do individual countries other than the US have? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So we have let's answer these questions. So the first one was, like, how do you future-proof these standards for the next level of technology? Because this is also a very good point, because this is not the first time you are having a joint statement and joint declaration on certain technology, but like, you know, then there will be something else in a couple of years. So what's your take on this? Who wants to take this? You, Pedro, or Ambassador, or Geereesha? Okay, go for Pedro.
I can go. One of the things that I really like of this joint declaration was the process, and I would say that all of the 3 questions that were raised are covered. So the concern around targeting, individualizing, and the use of advertisement is one of the concerns that was raised, as well as the regulation question. In my personal view, the lack of regulation or the delay of regulation only opens a scenario where no liability is assigned, and where the negative effects and human rights violations are still happening. And I think that's something that we clearly consider in the joint declaration. And just to wrap up, I'm sorry I covered the question, but any kind of concentration of power is bad for free expression. So if there's a concentration of power at the, judiciary, parliamentary, and executive branch, that's bad for free expression. We need parliaments that do fight for free expression, and executive branches that do tolerate critics, and judiciaries that protect free expression when there's a dilemma and of a violation of free expression. If we add to that private sector interest, I think that cocktail becomes poisoning. So definitely, I think it's something that this community has to discuss.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the second question was also like marginalized voices and, you know, the use of generative AI, about also like how to use this as a source. So would you like to respond to that?
No, I think I referred to it earlier. It has to be an inclusive approach. Mm-hmm. And then we come to the users. So yes, I agree with the person who asked the question, that there needs to be training on how to use AI in a responsible way. There are many, you can use AI and you can ask questions and you can get all kinds of answers. And it's not errors, by the way. The AI, the generative AI systems actually do hallucinate. They create fake stuff. And we have plenty of examples, and I could talk for an hour about examples about that. So people have to be aware on how to use AI, and there we get back to the education system, because I think we have to bring this into the education system from an early age now, so that young people understand how to use AI responsibly and in a way that diminishes the risk of false information from the AI systems. And again, I come back to the fact that AI is no better than the information that's fed into it. And then it manipulates that information to give answers to certain questions that people respond to. So I think people have to understand that. And especially if questions are of a more social or even political nature, we have examples of different AI systems that give different answers to the same question. So that are politically skewed in order to support one political option rather than others. So we're not getting necessarily objective and neutral information or answers from AI, and we have to understand that. So I think knowledge on how to use AI, that is a key issue, and we need to work more on that. The joint declaration is, as I see it, fundamentally based at governments and decision makers in order to sensitize them to the issues at hand. And none of the principles that we are advocating for here are new principles. We're talking about how to ensure that the human rights principles that we hold dearly are actually implemented in this new technological environment That's what this is about. We're not coming with new principles. We're saying the principles we have, and we've mentioned them, transparency, inclusiveness, human rights orientation, should be incorporated into the AI technologies. And we don't see that happening today. That's why this declaration is an advocacy for action to ensure that this is done, but we need governments to do it and we need the companies to follow through. But the companies will not do anything, I'm afraid, unless governments start to try to regulate, which brings me to the question that the gentleman over here had. And yes, that's the answer is, I don't think I can, we don't have an answer to that question yet. How realistic is it to regulate big tech? We see that the European Union has been trying to regulate big tech. We have the AI, the AI directive. We also have the other directives that the American government doesn't like. But let's be honest about this. The previous administration didn't like it either. So it's not as if it's the world has changed. The world has changed. But also the previous administration were not happy about the Digital Services Act. And they made that very apparent. Now it's turbocharged. They really don't like it. And they're threatening to combat it. They're threatening to fight it. So I hope that this declaration, that we can use this declaration to stiffen the resolve of our friends in the European Union when it comes to regulation.
Enforcement.
And to have that discussion about the need for regulation.
Yeah.
But it's going to be uphill, and there's going to be a lot of pushback because, and again I say it, big tech is big business. There's a lot of money involved, and they want more money. But we want a socially responsible artificial intelligence system that doesn't diminish human rights, that doesn't diminish democracy. Maybe that's too idealistic in this day and age, but that's what we want.
And we also don't need just like good regulation, but also proper enforcement once this regulation is adopted.
Indeed.
Geereesha, do you want to mention something on in response to these questions, especially the one on marginalized groups, since you spoke about it before? Or
Yes. So we agree that AI has a lot of potential. It has its good sides and bad sides. And it's true that there has to be more inclusiveness. That is, people have to know, to be educated on how to use AI, and they also have to know what they are getting out of AI and how to use it responsibly as well. Responsibility for everyone is important, and that is important even for big tech companies. It's true that regulations might not work, but big tech companies and AI developers have to understand that in the long run, if they want to continue in that business, a human rights approach is very important, and that is what we are saying as a message to them today.
Yeah, thank you. And apparently we are already coming to the end of the, sorry, like I feel like I'm in a police station. I have this kind of like a light in my face. So we apparently are like running out of time because, I should have probably some AI assistant to help me with time management. But I want to also give kind of like a final round to all of you because, obviously this is, the opportunity to speak with one voice, but all of you are actually working on this very topic within your respective mandates. So just to give like very, very briefly tell the audience what is your work on this specific issue within your mandate, what's next, and then how also people can connect with you and, help you, or you can help them working in it. So I want to start with Pedro, then Jan, and then Geereesha, very, very briefly.
I will change the answer for a couple of comments that I think are important for what we have discussed. This community of free expression and media freedom is very conscious of that the invitation to regulate, it's always a sweet candy for authoritarian governments. So I don't want to be misunderstood when we say the word regulation as a blind invitation for over-regulating a scenario that if required some kind of regulation should be aware of the risk. And in the other hand, to share an anecdote. This, when you look at frames of AI that have been developing in recent years, I think I'm very proud that this joint declaration didn't fall in this, I would say, naive wording of AI for good, AI for bad, let's do it in an ethical way. We consciously avoided that wording, and I think we go to the inspiration of human rights treaties, and that opens up, I think, the enforcement of freedom of expression and AI.
Okay. And are you working on AI in your mandate?
Yes, we are. The starting point has been this process, and the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights is working on the Inter-American shape of this.
Yeah, so if there are Latin Americans and those in the region, like connect with Pedro. Now with Ambassador, you obviously like had a big launch of a toolkit, but like maybe you just briefly mention what is your work in the OSCE region?
Well, the Office of the RFOM, already under my predecessor, started working on artificial intelligence and big tech social media platforms and the challenges that they present to freedom of media and freedom of information. And just a few days ago, we launched this policy manual, Safeguarding Freedom of Media in the Age of Big Tech Platforms and Artificial Intelligence. The policy manual includes a number of recommendations. It's fully aligned with the joint declaration, and we will be working with governments throughout the OSCE region on encouraging them to implement at least some of the policy recommendations that we come with here. But importantly, both the joint declaration and our policy manual, I see as if not the beginning of a discussion or dialogue, certainly a continuation of a discussion and dialogue with policymakers, with companies, and with civil society on how to move forward on regulation of this sector. And I agree with Pablo that regulation can also end up in a very bad way. We don't want that. We're fully cognizant of that. So regulation with due caution and care.
Yeah. And Geereesha, are you also working on this within your mandate in African Commission?
Yes, at the African Commission on Human and People's Rights and my special mandate as Special Rapporteur for Freedom of Expression and Access to Information, we have launched an AI study. And we also have resolutions 620, 630 and 631 that mandates me as Special Rapporteur to draw guidelines for state parties in relation to big tech companies as regards data collection and fact-checking, amongst others. So these are our priorities, and we are already working on these at the African Commission on Human and People's Rights.
So I hope that people here might connect with mandate holders on this and many other issues. And as I said at the very beginning, this joint declaration for like more than 20 years have been really useful tools for civil society, for policymakers on pushing progressive standards. So we'll definitely will be relying on that. So thank you for it. And if you want to connect with the special rapporteurs, they are here for the rest of the day. So thank you very much, and thank you very much to everyone for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.